A place of soaring skyscrapers, endless streets, glowing lights, and unforgettable stories. A city that captures the imagination of the world. But long before it became the capital of the modern age, it was nothing more than a quiet island covered in forests and rivers. An island called Manahatta. Today, we explore how Manahatta became New York City, a journey of more than 400 years. A journey of ambition, power, struggle, culture, and dreams. Our story begins long before the arrival of Europeans. Thousands of years ago, the island of Manhattan was home to the Lenape people. They lived among dense forests, fresh rivers, and rich wildlife. They fished in the Hudson, hunted deer in the woodlands, and built villages connected by footpaths. To the Lenape, the earth was sacred. They lived in balance with nature, never imagining that their peaceful island would one day become the busiest city on the planet. But across the Atlantic, ships were preparing to change everything. In 1624, Dutch explorers sailed into the harbor. They saw opportunity, deep waters, natural protection, and a perfect place for trade. The Dutch West India Company established a small settlement on the tip of Manhattan. They called it New Amsterdam. It began as a tiny outpost, just a fort, a windmill, and a few wooden houses. But the Dutch welcomed people from all over the world, no matter their background or religion. This early diversity became the foundation of New York's island. Legend says Manhattan was purchased for goods worth just $24. But the real story is far more complex. What truly mattered was that the transformation of this island had begun. 40 years later, the Dutch colony became the target of a larger empire. In 1664, English warships entered the harbor. The Dutch surrendered without a single cannon fired. New Amsterdam was renamed New York, in honor of the Duke of York. Under English rule, the city expanded rapidly. Brick homes replaced wooden huts. Markets grew. Ships filled the harbor. And yet, a darker system also took root: slavery. Much of the early city was built by enslaved Africans, whose contributions remain etched into the foundations of New York. By the 1700s, New York had become one of the busiest cities in colonial America. As tensions rose between the colonies and Britain, New York became a key battleground. On July 9, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was read to soldiers in the city. Crowds cheered the birth of a new nation. In a moment of passion, they tore down the statue of King George III. But the celebration didn't last long. The British returned with overwhelming force. New York became their military headquarters for most of the war. Fires destroyed parts of the city. Loyalists and patriots clashed in the streets. And George Washington's spies, known as the Culper Ring, operated beneath the shadows. When the war finally ended in 1783, Washington triumphantly marched. A new nation had been born. And New York was ready to rise with it. The 19th century brought enormous change. The defining moment came in 1825 with the opening of the Erie Canal. This engineering marvel connected New York Harbor to the Great Lakes, and to the farms, factories, and towns of the American interior. Overnight, New York became the nation's financial and trading capital. Ships filled the harbor. Goods poured into warehouses. And the population surged. Immigration explosion. Millions of immigrants arrived, Irish fleeing famine, Germans escaping war, later Italians, Jews, Eastern Europeans, and many more. Through Ellis Island, they entered the gateway to America, carrying nothing but hope and a dream for a new life. This wave of humanity forever changed New York's culture, language, food, and identity. New neighborhoods rise. Little Italy, Chinatown, Harlem, the Lower East Side. Each neighborhood became a world of its own, colorful, crowded, and alive with stories of struggle and success. New York had become a city built by the world. By the late 1800s, New York was outgrowing the ground beneath it. So it grew upward. The skyscraper revolution began. Steel frames allowed buildings to stretch into the sky. The Singer Building, the Flatiron Building, the Woolworth Building, each one taller, bolder, more daring. Then came two icons: the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building. both symbols of American ambition. At the same time, the Brooklyn Bridge, a marvel of engineering, linked two great cities, Manhattan and Brooklyn. New York was no longer just large. It was becoming legendary. The 1920s brought energy, music, and glamour. Harlem's jazz clubs flourished. Broadway lit up with excitement. Skyscrapers pierced the clouds. But in 1929, everything changed. The stock market crashed. Banks fell. Thousands lost their jobs. The Great Depression hit New York hard. Yet in the middle of this hardship, the city built the Empire State Building, an act of resilience and determination. It was proof that New York never stops moving forward. During World War II, New York's ports, factories, and workers played a vital role in the war effort. And when the war ended, the city became the center of world diplomacy. In 1945, the United Nations headquarters opened in Manhattan. From that moment on, New York was not just an American city. It was a global city. The second half of the 20th century saw New York become the cultural heartbeat of the world. Artists transformed downtown Manhattan. Broadway reached new heights. Jazz, soul, and R&B blossomed in Harlem. Pop art emerged in studios and galleries. And in the late 1970s, a revolutionary new form of music and dance emerged from the Bronx. Hip-hop. But the city also faced struggles. Rising crime, economic decline. Yet through every challenge, the city's spirit remained unbreakable. The 1990s marked the beginning of a powerful comeback. Times Square transformed from a dangerous district into a bright, global entertainment hub. New investments revived neighborhoods. Tourism surged. Buildings rose higher than ever before. New York was reborn. But the 21st century began with unimaginable tragedy. On September 11, 2001, the Twin Towers were attacked. Nearly 3,000 people lost their lives. It was a moment that broke hearts around the world. Yet even in grief, New Yorkers united. They rebuilt. They supported one another. And they rose again. Today, One World Trade Center stands tall, a symbol of hope, remembrance, and resilience. Modern New York is a global powerhouse. A city of 8.5 million people. Over 200 languages. And endless opportunity. From Wall Street to Broadway. From Central Park to Brooklyn's arts scene. From the renewed World Trade Center to the buzzing nightlife. New York remains a place where dreams are built. A city that never sleeps. Because it is always moving, always growing, always evolving. New York's story is not just about buildings or money. It is a story of people. Native Americans. Dutch traders. English settlers. Immigrants from every corner of the world. Workers, artists, leaders, and dreamers, together, they transformed an island of forests into one of the most iconic cities in human history. New York City stands today as a symbol of resilience, diversity, and limitless possibility. This is the story of how New York became New York. Music rises, fades out,